Sometimes.
The best.
Oh, I love technology.
I'm going to call this meeting of the Planning Board and Zoning Commission meeting of March 25th, 2026 to order. Could we please have a roll call?
Roberts.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Tubman.
Here.
Eccles Bell. Boise.
Here.
Conley.
Here.
And Di Benedetto.
Here.
Excellent, excellent. Did everybody have a chance to read over the minutes?
Yes. Yep.
I had a question on something that you had, under your city council representative update. MOU approved for the PAR?
The ice skating PAR,
Okay.
the ice, Red Lodge Ice PAR, so if we want to, and it says for the PAR for ice
For
skating.
ice
rink.
skating.
Yeah.
Okay. And did the council discuss a planner for the city at the city council meeting?
Yes, but not really.
I didn't think that you reported that.
Council discussed acquiring a planner for the city. It came up in conversation, that's all it was. I might have reported it,
Okay,
but if I did, it was a very offhand, yeah, just a
very quick report.
very quick report.
Good catch, Con.
Make sure I don't miss a beat on me, because I won't remember. So.
I'll entertain a motion for the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roberts.
Aye.
Gray.
Yep.
Tubman.
Yes.
Eccles Bell. Boise.
Yes.
Conley.
Yes.
And Di Benedetto.
Yes.
Okay, communications from the board. We'll start with URA. Perry?
I don't, I'm gonna have to defer to Jeff, because I was not at the meeting, so. Jeff,
Yeah.
were you at the meeting?
No, I've been out of town.
That's why.
So it was really good.
Well, I can give you a brief synopsis, and you were there. We talked about the April 30th, Kansas State University TAB, group coming back and doing the citywide recap of their survey and the results of the survey that the community did, and I think that was about it.
Yes.
They're going to, so Kansas City is going to be out and do their presentation. That is going to be April 30th, so not March 30th, a month out.
Yeah.
5:30 to 7, and they're actually going to do two things. The first part will be them showing their visioning diagrams and stuff that they've done with the URD for the community input, and then they'll do a break. And then the second part is they are putting together some plans. I have not seen any of them, but they're putting together some plans for the Rocky Fork property as well.
Oh.
And so they will present that, and I think that'll probably help get more people out too, just because people will be interested in both ends of towns.
And that's at the Roosevelt?
Yeah.
That's going to be at the Roosevelt at 5:30 to 7.
Doors will open at 5.
I heard there's snacks at 5.
There's
always
snacks
snacks.
at 5, yes.
We might have to set up chairs to do it, so.
It's better to have them take them down. City council rep update.
Honestly, yesterday was a very light meeting. We were done by 7 p.m. So not a whole lot to report. There were some appointments at various city boards, and the one thing that I do think is beneficial for our entire community to do is that there's currently a resort tax survey out there, and please fill that out and tell your friends to fill it out, as that is something that becomes a staple in making decisions. So.
Excellent.
Okay.
Is that online?
It is online, and you can go to the city website to get to it. If you go to the news section, there's a whole thing for the survey. The one thing that it will add, there was some feedback last night, and so we went through and edited it. Apparently, it does not work if there are pop-ups. If your browser blocks pop-ups, you can't get to it. So I talked to a couple of the different people that had expressed issues, and so I made the click here bigger, but I also just pasted the link in so that people can copy it and paste it. And we also put in there to call City Hall, and then we had kind of a training on it on City Hall so if people can call in. But I have followed up with everybody who had the issues. One of the things I did while I was editing it, though, is I changed the title of the page, and it turned out what that made is the link of the page itself, but the links to the surveys remained the same. But if somebody had mailed the link to the page out prior to yesterday, that stopped working. And so what happened is there was something they were doing at the foundation, they were getting ready to send it out, and they reached out, and Brad sent me what he was looking at, because we couldn't figure, I was like, last night half the table was going to it, and this morning I was going into it. But what they were going to is the page, and the only thing I can think of is there was some typos in the title, and it changed the ID of the actual page. But if you navigate to it, you can still get to it fine. But if you're doing with the link to the page rather than the survey more than a day old, start over and go to the city website and go.
Okay, that's good. And Marnie's not here for a county rep update. Communication from the mayor.
The only thing I can add, Brian is on vacation this week. When he gets back, we are in full mode planning or building season, and so he's going to be going back to that. We will have cards from Jeremy directly in the front office, so that those are there if people. So rather than having things go through Brian, I'll be going through the planning email and kind of forward things on to them, which is a role that Brian has been doing. And I'll step back to doing that until we get a staff position in to do that. So, but I suspect those cards will be in tomorrow unless they came in this afternoon. And they'll just be at the front office. But we'll probably, and Brian will still be involved in a lot of those calls because those two things work very, very well. I'm going to actually revisit a conversation with Brian about having Brian be the staff person at these meetings, but that's problematic for him because he has a young family and doesn't want to not be home in the evenings. I'm going to revisit that with him, but I don't have high likelihood of it changing, but have him be here rather than me. If not, then we'll wait until we get the city administrator in, and it won't depend on what their background is. That will be in their homework assignment, so.
It'll be part of their duties.
Yeah.
All right. So the new business is we have a public hearing, and our hearing procedure will start with the reading of the matter before the planning board. We'll qualify the planning board to make this decision. It is a quasi-judicial decision, and we'll start from there. So let's have the reading of the matter in front of the planning board.
Thanks. I'll take that. See, I'll share my screen so I can share the staff report. Okay, so this is
Thank you.
so this matter is for a design review for 424 North Broadway Avenue for a garage addition to the existing structure on the property. Whoop. Hold on, I need to figure out there we go. The owner applicant is HMH Developments LLC, with the authorized representative, Micah Hoffman. Tonight is the planning board hearing on this application. The property is described as 424 Broadway Avenue in Red Lodge, lot 15, block 54 of the Red Lodge original town site. You can see the location map, the property outlined in blue at the intersection of Broadway and 6th Street East is the property location. The property size is 4,267 or 76 square feet. The proposal is for the addition of a garage building to an existing building on the developed property. The addition will be made to the existing building number 1 that's shown on the site plan that's provided with the staff report and the application. The garage addition is proposed to be 2 stories with a primary level garage space for parking and an additional unfinished storage space on the second level. The addition will have 2,590 square feet that will be added to the existing commercial building on 2 levels. The primary level garage space is 1,400 square feet. The secondary level is 1,190 square feet of unfinished storage area. So the total square footage of the building with the addition will be 2,830 square feet. The existing building number 2 is not being changed, and there is also an existing storage accessory storage shed on the property. Design review is required for expansions to an existing building within the central business district. This is not a conditional use permit. This is only design review for the proposed garage addition. You can see, so there will be 2 motions. First will be to move a motion for the staff report, to adopt the staff report, findings of fact, and then also move to approve or deny the design review permit for the expansion of the existing building. We have listed several conditions, 13 conditions with the design review. These are all associated with current required standards of the zoning regulations. We do not have any for specific conditions except for condition 13, in which that the 2 parking spaces in the driveway into the garage from the street shall be surfaced with asphalt and concrete as required by the zoning regulations. That was not shown on the site plan, so I added that as a condition. Adjacent zoning north and south and west is C4 Central Business District. East is R3 Medium Density Urban Residential. You can see from the zoning map here, this is the property. C4 Central Business District, and then the R3. The site is currently developed with 2 existing residential structures utilized for commercial occupancy. The site also contains a temporary storage shed. That shed is not shown on the plans, but it is on the property. There is no mature vegetation or trees on the property. There is some existing trees around the site, and there is some existing landscaping on the front of the property on Broadway. The surrounding properties are developed with mixed-use commercial and residential buildings. The parcel is not located within the mapped floodplain. I should say the mapped 100-year floodplain. It is within the 500-year flood hazard area, and located 1,450 feet from Rock Creek. So here's some pictures of the property. Here's the rear of the property. Here's the existing building number 1 is the structure right here. This is the structure that's being added onto with the new garage addition. There is this existing storage shed, and then this structure here that is not part of the addition. Here's a view from the front. So the garage addition will be in the back behind these buildings from Broadway, looking from Broadway. So we went through the design review process. The design review process does require that we look at the standards of general applicability. One thing I will note is we did not get we have not received any public comment written prior to this meeting that I am aware of. So we went through the standards of general applicability, which is required for design review. This is not subject to hillside developments, environmental regulations. There's no wetlands. There will be no water quality impacts associated with the project. Air quality impacts will be minimal. Condition number 13 addresses this. No areas of subsidence evident, and then it's not located with a floodplain. Parking and loading standards, C4 is exempt from the parking loading standards. We have a landscaping plan. The application does indicate that they will provide one overstory evergreen, 4 understory evergreens, and grass as landscaping for the site. Condition number 7 requires a landscape plan be provided for review and approval. Same thing with lighting. They are proposing cutoff lights on the addition. Condition number 4 addresses this. Infrastructure, the site is already served with city water and sewer, and then existing water and sewer services will be utilized for the new addition. Any additional utilities will be located underground. Legal and physical access for the new driveway is from 6th Street East to the garage doors. They're not proposing any livestock. Stormwater management is not applicable. They are not disturbing more than 20,000 square feet. And we've addressed the operational performance standards, air quality, those sorts of things with our conditions, as well as noise. So building design, street wall length and shape, building sides facing the streets appear to have offsets in the wall plan, or architectural features or indents to break up the mass of the wall. And the nature of the existing building orientation on the property will also contribute to breaking up the mass of the structure. The applicant noted, for roof standards, the applicant noted that all exterior finishes, windows, roof siding will be consistent with neighboring residential properties to comply with zoning, and roof penetrations will be gained and screened to maximum extent possible. Let's see. The applicant did note the material and finish of the construction materials shown in the plan set. Materials appear to meet historic architecture of Red Lodge. We have condition number 8 that addresses this. That will be reviewed with the building permit as a condition of this zoning. Design review. Additional requirements for C4 building orientation. Primary building entries and facades face the adjacent avenue or street. This is met. Well, the existing building meets that. This is a driveway entrance that will be off of 6th. So the new structure will be off of the adjacent avenue or street. Setbacks, there are no setbacks in the C4 except for a maximum front setback of 5 feet. They're not building to the front of the lot. They're building on the back of the lot. So that does not apply. The screening section also does not apply to this review. The project is located outside the commercial historic district overlay. And this section is not applicable. The project will have a residential appearance, as you saw see in the rest of the application with renderings and plans. It's going to essentially look like a garage attached to the existing structure. So with that, I think I'll turn it over back to you, Sandy. And if there's any other questions, I can certainly show the plans on the screen. And maybe I'll just show the site plan while you're talking.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yep.
I'm going to qualify the planning board. Does any member of the planning board have any ex parte communication to disclose? Please verbally say it so that we have the recording.
No, I do not.
No.
No?
No.
Thank you. I do not either. Does any member feel that they should recuse themselves from participation in the hearing and decision on the matter before the planning board? We'll start with you, Susan.
No.
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 Jeff?
No.
Okay, thank you. The authority is the city planning board, vote needed for action, standard of review, Red Lodge zoning regulations. Has the matter been properly noticed as required by the Red Lodge zoning regulations?
Yes,
Would
it
that be
has.
Jeremy?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Let the record indicate that the Red Lodge City Planning Board has been called and qualified to hear the matter at hand, that the matter is quasi-judicial in nature and has been properly noticed. Report on the request on behalf of the city. That's probably what Jeremy just did.
I think, yeah, we've got the city part done.
Okay. And a report on the request on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, ma'am.
Micah.
This will be brief. I wasn't expecting to speak. I was expecting to field questions, but not make a statement. So I'll just tell you what the intent of the new build is to move my business into this garage. Get my business off of our personal property. We operate for the last 7 or 8 years out of a 20 by 24. So this will give us substantially more space and will keep employees from coming to my house every morning. That'll be a plus to get the business away from the personal property. And then it's just an opportunity to continue to invest and develop in Red Lodge, and we're looking forward to doing that.
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Questions on behalf of the board? Of the applicant? So I assume that you'll have kind of your office in the front building, and in the back would be more storage and stuff like that?
No, ma'am. So the intent would be, Vicki can stay there as long as she likes. And then the small 240-foot space right there, where the shop bisects it, that's gonna be another commercial rental.
Oh. Well, didn't have anything to do with the garage, but,
It does.
okay. Thank you. We're gonna go a public hearing. If there's anybody in the public that would like to speak on the matter at hand, you're required to state your name and address for the record. And please keep your comments brief and on the matter before the planning board. Anyone from the room? How about anyone online? Raise your hand.
Madam Chairman, I see no hands or unmuted mics other than Jeff.
All right. Written comments received on the matter before the board. I believe that Jeremy's already said that there hadn't been any written comments. Great. So I think with that, then I'm going to close the public hearing. And then the planning board. Everybody's had a chance on the planning board to look over the documents. I only had one question, and it's probably for you, Jeremy, is I noticed that the landscaping was required on any property of 5,000 square feet or more, yet this lot is 46 something. So do they have to have a landscape plan?
Good question.
According to your 4.5.60.
Well, so it's per 5,000 square feet of lot area. So that doesn't mean that, so the actual section says that any development requires landscaping, a landscaping plan. This just means that this is what you have to provide per 5,000 square feet. So since their lot is less than 5,000 square feet, it would just be that one. So they'd have to only technically provide one deciduous overstory tree or one large evergreen tree. Does that make sense? Or the other stuff, right? Or four understory trees, or you know what I mean? So
Right.
The submitted proposal so the requirement is if the submitted proposal increases the gross floor area by more than 1,000 square feet, then a landscaping plan is required.
Okay,
And which
That was
this
my
does meet that, so.
barely. Any other questions? Questions of the applicant? Jeff, are you okay?
Yeah, I had one question. On the staff report, it said something about the west side of the building being adjacent to the alley. And I was wondering if that was a typo and should be the
Yeah.
east.
Yeah, that should be east. Do you remember where you saw that?
Oh, it
Uh,
was,
Probably would have been under setbacks. Maybe.
I can find it and update it. If you just make the motion to correct that, I'll find it and fix that.
okay. Yeah, that was the only thing I noticed in the staff report was misalignment or typo referring to the orientation to the alley. There, I think I just saw it.
Okay, well,
I'll
whoever
find
goes,
it.
It's in under building orientation, under 4.3.144.
to the last page of the
Right here.
requirement.
Where it says building orientation, the west building faces the city alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, this should be north and west here too. Okay, I can fix that section.
Okay,
That's all I had.
great.
I have a question just specifically on parking. So just looking at the site plan, shows the approach coming off of 6 into the garage space. Did you have something for that? Some insight out the gate?
No, I was just marking this thing up and it just made a noise. Go ahead.
All right. I love sound effects. This is fine. So I'm looking at this approach, and then directly next to the garage space, there's another vehicle parked. So wouldn't that approach also continue? Because again, you can see where the car that's parked on the street, there's not another image of that close to the approach. So I assume that approach is actually extending basically to the corner of existing building number 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's probably more of a building permit working with Brian thing when they actually go to build this. But I would assume that you would be correct.
Okay.
And we
Micah?
did, and the surfacing is part of that condition number 13. So.
And Micah, you had a comment.
Yeah, I can answer that. I guess he did dial it into 35 by 40, but that car was there whenever I thought that shop, but there was more space.
Gotcha.
There's like 8.5 feet there now, so it's not
Yeah.
gonna be usable parking.
Okay.
No one's gonna park there, it'll probably be dumpster for the property.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mostly just want to know how it's going to affect the street parking next to it. Again, with having employee rigs coming in as well as 2 commercial buildings in the front and their customers as well. Not that I'm as worried about parking at that section of town. It's not like it's right downtown, but just something for consideration. But yeah, that's all I had a concern about.
Okay. Anyone else? Are you okay?
I'm good.
You look like you're in thought here.
Just.
Yeah.
No, I think Micah did mention in his portion that the lot boundaries were smaller, and so they reduced the scope, so. So, yeah, no, I'm good with it, so.
Well, at that point, I'll entertain a motion, as I'm looking at you.
I was gonna say, looking at me, okay.
I am.
Hold on, let me get back up to the
Gotta get to
motion.
that
First is regarding the staff report.
I move to approve, or I move to adopt the staff report RLDR 2026-1 as finding of fact, as amended.
No, the staff, staff report has a minute.
Yeah.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
John has seconded. And can we have roll call, please?
Roberts,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Tupin,
Yes.
Engelsville, Boise,
Yes.
Conley,
Yes.
and Di Benedetto.
Yes.
And then, I will move to approve the design review permit LRDR 2026-1 for the expansion to the existing building located on Red Lodge Original Town Site, Block 54, Lot 15, in Section 27, Township 7 South, Range 20 East, PMM, subject to the following conditions.
The following 13 conditions.
13 conditions. Didn't do the math.
And thank you, John, for seconding.
I was told there'd be no math.
And no discussion? So could we have roll call?
Roberts,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Tupin,
Yes.
Boise,
Yes.
Conley,
Yeah.
and Di Benedetto.
Yes.
Well, that was probably the easiest design review we've ever done.
Well, I think it's.
What
very-
color is it
very
gonna be?
thorough.
No.
It was very thorough.
Yeah,
It really helps.
yeah.
You're it, Mike.
Thank you for your
I think you
thoroughness.
got it.
Thank you, guys.
Well, you gave us a very,
One small question, so the landscaping plan, Brian will follow up and make sure, like, how do we comply with that?
yeah, he's given you choices.
Yep. And you'll just have to present a design plan before you can move forward.
Landscape.
Not to us.
Before building permit secured.
Yep.
Yeah. Brian will take care of that.
Yeah, he will assist when he's back from Mexico. Probably not right now.
That's the sweet.
No, notice he's not online.
Right?
All right, well, I'm gonna go back to, our agenda, and let's see if there's any public comment on anything on the agenda or not on the agenda. This would be a good spot for a public comment. Hearing nothing from the room, okay, Betsy?
I have a question. I noticed in, not, related to anything on the agenda, but there was a mention of a new staff position for the city administrator. Could you maybe
That would,
explain that?
I would defer to the mayor on that.
It's the first time I've heard of that, so I'm curious.
It's something we've had on the agenda for quite a bit, so and how it ties to the planning board specifically is, it's a city administrator. In the past, what we've had is a planner who we've given a bunch of other duties. The job application is basically looking for a city administrator. It requires municipal background. That could be as a city administrator, that could be as a planner, that could be as a finance administrator. So there's like a half a dozen different positions there. And then that will determine kind of how much that may change our dependency on WWC that's currently our outsourcing. If that person happens to have a planning background, that just something that'll impact that relationship and workload.
Is there a job description out there now?
There is not.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody online with any public comment? No hands?
Madam Chair, I see no mics or raised hands.
All right. I'm going to close public comment. And we're getting into old business. Review the 2025-26 zoning regulations. Yay.
Yay.
Okay, I have coffee. I'm ready.
You got coffee?
I need coffee.
All right. Let's see, where did we leave off? I think it's somewhere in this. I have
Are you
down,
gonna pull those up, Connor?
Yeah,
I think I wrote that we were starting at 4.3.110, but I think that we decided to look at 4.3101, public district standards.
Yes, we were struggling with that.
We struggled with that, so we were trying to pass over that one, but we didn't quite make it.
That's right.
Yeah, well, it's all right.
We're
So-
missing our Jeremy.
So based on Connor's notes from the last meeting, and I apologize, I wasn't able to attend the last meeting. I was snuggling my new grandbaby, so, but, I looked into some other zoning regulations, Helena, Billings, and Missoula, on their public districts. There's quite a range of what they are doing in those municipalities. For instance, Helena has one public lands and institutions district. That's all they have in for the city that allows. And Connor's pulled this up. You can see the definition there. It just says provides, which I think aligns pretty well with your definition, but provides for and applies only to public and quasi-public institutional uses and lands, recreational, educational, and public services for the general benefit of the citizens of the city. And then they have a pretty good list of permitted uses within that district. One that I thought was interesting is they have taverns as a list as a permitted use within the PLI, which I'm not really sure where that came from. But go ahead and scroll down, Connor.
that's a great idea.
You can see there they have
Yeah.
tavern, which I thought was interesting. They allow daycare centers in PLI. But generally speaking, it's public type uses, churches, schools, recreational uses, parking, utilities, that sort of thing. Like I said, they do have just one public district. Go ahead and scroll to the next sheet. So the next one I looked at was Billings. Billings has 3. Basically, they split it up. They have a parks and open space district, which is intended for just those recreational uses like parks, trails, wetlands, environmentally sensitive areas, open space areas, that sort of thing, to preserve open spaces and scenic values and that sort of thing. P2 is those public, civic, and institutional uses like, schools, community services, that sort of thing. And then P3 is campus, which I believe is like their, would be like hospital campuses, college campuses, civic campuses. I would guess that's probably like their, the civic center, or the Metro, right? That campus, on that side of town.
County.
So that's what Billings has. Go ahead and scroll. And we'll provide this separately to the planning board members after the meeting, via email, so you can read through all this. I won't read through it all, tonight, just to save some time. Then Missoula has, 3 as well. They call them OP, open space districts. But again, the OP1 is designed for open space, natural resource areas, environmentally sensitive areas, agriculture, that sort of thing. 2 is for low density residential or cluster developments. And then 3 is those institutional uses or recreational uses, is their third one. And then I've got a table. They had a whole big table on allowed uses in each one of these districts. Again, I'm not going to go through each one of them. So I did do some research on those 3 cities just to provide you some background. So Okay, that's probably good. Is there any questions on that before I go back to your zoning regulations?
Do any of them have a section for, high-density housing?
So Missoula would be the only one that I think allows for residential. And that's in their OP2. You can see here they have townhouses, detached houses, as permitted uses. I think if you scroll down that list, there would be some others as well. I'm looking here. They got daycares in there.
There's one that was 9+, so,
Yeah, group housing.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's a community residential facility. That's like a group home though. That's not like like you're talking about multifamily housing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a group
But
home.
it doesn't look like Missoula allows for like multifamily housing development on on their public land zoning. They do allow for cluster development of townhomes, but I think the idea there is if you looked at the rest of the regulations is the intent is that they want you to cluster the units, so like a higher density development type to preserve the open space on the parcel. So like you had a 20-acre parcel and there was some sensitive area on that parcel or some ag that you wanted to preserve on that parcel. They might say, well, you could cluster high density in this, in the corner 5 acres, but the rest of it has to remain open space or ag or something like that, right? So that's kind of the intent of that. Helena and Billings, that I could tell, did not allow for any kind of housing on
I
public.
thought it residential in Helena, but
I think it's maybe.
no.
Helena also had taverns though, so.
They have a lot of.
Yeah.
Again, they have community residential facility. That's a group home. So that's
Okay.
not
Right.
that's not.
I didn't get the second part, yeah.
Yeah, so Helena does not allow residential per se, except for that community, like a group home type facility on PLI. So, so generally speaking, I mean, I think the general consensus is that, public land zoning is not meant for residential development. It's meant for institutional, recreational, or preservation of open space or some sensitive areas. So I think with that being said, I have a couple of thoughts. I think that, what you have in your zoning currently kind of fits with what their other cities are doing. I would say, depending on what your intentions are, you have P1, which is those, public health and safety. Let's see, it says, what does it say? Public buildings, parks, and rec facilities, and open spaces. And then you have a separate district for schools specifically. So P2 is for schools. I guess what I would say is that if you wanted to keep 2 districts, I would probably change it up a little bit and say P1 is your preservation of open space or critical sensitive areas, and then P2 is your institutional uses. So that's going to be the schools, the government buildings, the recreational facilities like playgrounds and ice rinks and ball fields and those types of things, right? The other option would be to just make one public district, just one public use zoning district, and have everything in that one district. Would simplify things on your zoning map a little bit.
yeah,
Harry had a question.
no, I recognize we're looking forward, but I just have a question for you, Jeremy. the city could still own land, but it not be designated in P1 or P2. It would fall in whatever the zoning was where the city land was zoned. I guess that's my question.
Yeah, just because the city owns it does not mean it has to be zoned as P1 or P2. You could zone it whatever you want. You just have to go through the zone map amendment process to do that, right? So
Right.
the city would follow the same standards as anybody else that would want to do a zone change, right? So we would have a
Sure.
public hearing and we would go through all the steps, right? Gather public
Okay.
comment, that sort of thing. But yeah, there's no requirement that because the city owns it, it has to be zoned P1.
Okay.
P1,
I guess-
the zoning only applies to what the land is used for. It has no bearing on
Sure.
owner.
Ownership. So the other part of that is, we do have some P1 lands that don't fit into that category. They don't, or either P1 or P2. I
Exactly.
mean, that's their existing use, but how will what we do here impact that current use? It shouldn't, I guess, so.
Well, it wouldn't impact the current use.
Right, but what if like the bowling alley burned down next week? What would that mean? What would that look like? Or the Subway sandwich shop, or
It'd be smoky for sure. but-
or the, what's the
So-
word?
Yeah.
So the bowling alley is zone P1.
One, yeah,
Yeah.
So so that
Facility.
yeah, that I'd have to look at it closer. That may comply with P1 just because it's a recreational use. But
also,
I mean, public zone. I mean, I would say it's probably conforming use, depending on the building itself. Typically, I would say, if you're looking at an existing structure, an existing use on a lot, I typically look at it more as, okay, that's a non-conforming use or structure right now, right? Without getting into the weeds of whether it is conforming or not. If it burns down tomorrow, then whatever it gets replaced with has to be in conformance with zoning. So that's basically the gist of it, right? So if that structure goes away, usually there's a process for reestablishment of something through a variance process if something like a fire occurs or something like that. But typically whatever gets rebuilt on that site would have to comply with zoning. So say they wanted out of it, they sold it, somebody wanted to come in and put a hotel on it, they'd have to rezone the lot, right?
So that was gonna be my next question is, again, moving forward and thinking forward, just because the city owns it doesn't mean it has to be P1 or P2.
correct.
So does it make sense for lots like the Silver Strike lot to have that become a part of the community entrance? And then it's a multi-use mixed space.
Well, there's also land on North Broadway, adjacent to AY and the propane.
Right.
And then on even North Hagen, there's all along there, the base of the hill leading over to the park, that's all city-owned land. And is that, I guess,
Yeah, right
would
now
we
it's
need to wait
public.
for a proposal from the city when we're juggling with the map, or do we just, is that something we would do?
I mean, from a city council perspective, this is one of the things that we wanted in consideration, and one of
Right.
the things that we've requested is that we look at some of the P1 and evaluate the best use for that space.
Okay.
So I think by rezoning it to be a community entrance or a multi-use, or
Mhm.
what fits that space more actually is by the request of the plant, or the council at this
Okay.
point.
Yeah, it's not like we're gonna put parks there.
At the end of the day, it's gonna end up going to council anyway, so if we disagree, we're just gonna say, never mind, don't do it.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, because city-owned land doesn't have to be designated as a P1 or P2, by the same token, does that mean that a privately owned parcel could also be zoned as a P1 or P2? Just out of curiosity.
I
Does
mean,
it go both ways?
I guess
I
if
mean,
you
if
had
they,
like,
if they wanted to rezone it that, I don't know why they would. But if they wanted to go through the rezoning process to do that, then, you know, the city would consider it and go through that process. Now, I would say there might be reasons why the city may not approve something like that. And that's you're essentially once that house goes away, it can't be reestablished, right? And so you're taking away potential, residential use. But
I mean, I can think of an example where that would be a scenario, and it'd be specifically a trust or a donation, where someone wants to preserve their land that they've purchased and turn that into a park and have it preserved as such, or have it preserved as again, when you look at P1 and read that, it is providing public use, and whether that's health, safety, general welfare, preserving natural resources, like I
Open
could
space.
open space. So I could specifically see individuals within our community saying, I want to preserve my land and give that to the public and give that to the community as a park or as a hospital or as a group home.
Mhm.
And so I could see where they want to donate that or provide that space back to the community, but lock it in.
Well, they'd still own it.
Yeah.
But the uses would be
Public.
public.
Yep.
I was thinking more about the Quonset hut, that if the fire department wanted that kind of thing, that we could, zone that P, even though it's privately owned. And I just didn't know if. under
yeah, I
what
mean,
circumstances-
if whatever they want, I mean, I think there just has to be an understanding that, if you do this and the city does go through with that puts that restriction on that property, and it can only be used for what's allowed within that district, right? And so I think it just needs to be clear if somebody does come forward with that proposal that's the case. And if it ever had to go, if they ever wanted to go back it'd have to go back through the same process, right? So it'd have to go back through the whole zone map amendment process and everything.
I noticed that all three of the cities had a list of things that they allow. Should we be thinking lists ourselves? Or can we be a little more vague like we are right now?
Well, we already have the table, that
Yeah.
Yeah.
lists all the land uses that are allowed, and that includes P1 and P2. So we have that.
That's a
Okay.
good point.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and the Quonset hut, I mean, we kind of know that that's gonna change, but we don't know.
I'm trying to remember if that's on it or not.
It's currently in C3 North, that lot.
The comment that I was gonna add, and Jeremy kind of got to it, is because what I heard somebody say earlier is like, if they wanted to preserve it for the city, they could get it zoned that wouldn't do it. That would be a deed restriction if you wanted to do that,
You're
because you
right.
could undo zoning. If you do deed restrictions, that's gonna be if I were donating something to the city, I would do it with a deed restriction, because as Jeremy alluded to, the zoning could I want to change it to something else.
Yeah.
And now, having said that, we have a donation that is being looked at and considered by the city right now that is a trail, that it would make sense to go in and do a zoning adjustment and designate that as P land. But there will also be a deed restriction that is what locks it in and specifies the use.
Okay. Any other discussion on public district standards?
But I guess I think it's just a decision of, for you guys to make on whether you want to leave it as is, if you would want to change it up a little bit, and maybe make P1 that, public buildings, parks and rec facilities, and schools district, and then maybe P2 is your open space preservation district, or and I'm fine if if you want to just leave it as is, I have no problems with that. I just wanted to just throw it out there that, now's the time to change it up if you want to change it up, or leave it the same.
I think, thank you, Jeremy, and I appreciate you reminding us that we do have the table, that And I think that's probably, when we go back and review that, that we keep this in mind.
And I think Jeremy does have a good point in having this changed up a little bit, specifically what would become institution versus open space. I think that would be good to have that clarification
Yeah.
and clean that up.
Yep.
Because it will make it easier for when you say, well, what's the best use? Is it open space or is it a building? And versus school or not school, because that's kind of how we have it written now.
Yeah,
Did you call me?
yes,
Yes.
Yeah, I was I was just gonna go along with what Jeremy and Chelsea were saying, that it might behoove to sort of break those uses apart and keep parks and open spaces as something different than being included in that broad category that it currently is. I think it would clean it up a little bit better and keep some distinct purposes separate. I think parks and open space is distinctly different than recreational facilities or facilities with a structure associated with them that are public either for recreation or other purposes.
So do we want to make P1 then, like our public buildings, recreational facilities, those sorts of things, and then make P2 our open space and preservation district, essentially?
It makes no difference to me.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that makes sense with the way this is written right now. You know, you have the discussion up above about, you know, P1 about a variety of public and semi-public uses, public health and safety. That generally fits with other definitions I saw where they're allowing, you know, those public buildings, schools, that sort of thing. And then I think, so let's do that. P1 will be that public buildings, recreational facilities, etc. So in the second sentence there, Connor, take out parks and take out open space, essentially. And we can tweak this a little bit more with the language, but this will be a start at least.
You'll want to keep recreational facilities.
Yeah, leave recreational facilities and just put in space of open space, put et cetera, something like that. And then, I mean, and then under P2, that's going to be provide adequate land for open space. And I would just, we'll play with the language a little bit more. I'd take the rest of that out, the rest of that sentence out. And I might add a little bit more language to this just to make it a little more clear. Or, you know, when you go back through it, you can review some of that additional language, if that works.
Good point.
Yeah.
The reason why.
I would say parks and open space are P2, not just open space.
Yeah, parks and open space. Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
The reason why I was asking Jeremy about residential is because we have been looking for workforce housing, and to purchase the land and then build at $395 a square foot, it makes it impossible. If the city were to lease or donate public land, that's why I was going for residential, but only multifamily.
I would rezone it. I would rezone it. I wouldn't make that a use in public, because then it just opens the door for other residential uses on public P districts, right? I would say if you're going to do that, you could go through that process, but just go through the rezoning process when you do it.
You couldn't just say if 20 structures or more, or 20 units or more, or...
I think that's part of the condition of the donation and the lease,
What?
less of the zone.
Yeah, I
if
mean,
that
there's a
makes
whole
sense.
process that the city has to go through to do something like that, because you can't just you can't just dispose of public city property without going, there's a whole MCA process on doing that. And so,
But you don't, or lease.
yeah, even for leasing, there's a whole process, there's a whole proposal process you have to go through. There's a whole thing you have to go through in order to accomplish that, to either lease or sell property. And so basically you have to open it up to the best proposal for that property, and the city reviews those proposals, and you basically make a decision on the best use of that property. And part of that process, like say you pick one, then would be then to work with that developer to then go through the rezoning process to allow that project.
Okay. Okay. So you think we're pretty good at the public district standards?
Yeah, like I said, we'll clean up some of this language so that when you go back through the second time of these regulations, you'll have a little bit more to review. But I think this is a start. I think we understand what you want. So
Perfect. And we're up to 4.3.110, overlay zoning district.
okay, so as we get into this, I have a few comments. I went into this a little bit. So I'll start on the Skyline Overlay Zoning District. I did not see this on any map, so I don't see where this is designated anywhere. So I don't know how we apply this if it's not on the map. So I think two things: either we need to put it on the map so that
Right.
when I or Brian or whoever in the future is reviewing, for zoning, we know what this applies to, because right now I don't think we know. So that's the first thing. If you don't want to put it on the map, then I would say we just have to take this out because we have no way of enforcing this because it's not on the map.
And it hasn't been enforced especially up on the golf course in those cul-de-sacs where they build and there's skylining where you can see it from down
Well, the
below.
setback, there's a setback requirement, but
But still, the point was that you didn't want to
see them at all.
houses all lined up, along the back.
And that was going to be my next question was, has this even been enforced? And my golf course was my question, because if you haven't been enforcing it, because it's not on the map, probably, then I don't know how you move forward with enforcing it, because I think you're going to get pushback from people if you start trying to enforce it now.
This has been being enforced. I'm wondering if there's a possibility that this has been somehow lost in the initial draft from the old document to the new draft, or is it just something we need to put on the zones? Because what I'm recalling in my mind is the pictures that have the slope and the angles and the pictures and everything.
Yeah.
And so I know that gets used, but it may have been getting implemented via text only. If you're against the hill, then you have to, in my mind, I remember the old text only version of it. So I would say you do want to keep it. You may just want to put it,
Like an actual.
added a visual. But what I'm wondering is if it's something that got lost as we went from the old to the new format. Because I do know that I've been party to and remember conversations where that was being reviewed on plans.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the PDF version of the current zoning regulations, and I'm looking at the current map that I have anyway, and I don't see where it's designated anywhere.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is as a graphic addition to the map. I think that's a good suggestion. But I think if you go look at like slope or, as I'm looking up the board, I know that the board members, because I see them nodding, going, I know what part he's looking at too. I don't know that I ever remember seeing it depicted on the map, but I do remember a lot of verbiage around it.
Yeah, there are the skyline rules, and I guess that we just don't have that overlay visualized.
Jeff, you got a question or comment?
Yeah, I guess a couple of comments I have is, one, I believe it has been enforced. And if you do look along the skyline, along the east bench, you'll notice none of those houses you see from Highway 212, they're all set back and they're all single-story structures. And there were, depending on how far there was height restrictions based on how far back uh, the structure was from the edge of the escarpment. So it has been enforced. The other, and I think it should stay in place just for that primary reason. When the growth policy, we do talk about preserving views towards the benches. The other aspect relative to the mapping, with today's technology, it seems like it would be a pretty easy, simple GIS exercise simply to buffer the edge of the escarpment by with 100-foot buffer, and that would actually define what that zone is. And then later on within zoning, it talks about what the criteria are in order to meet the intent of the overlay.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to bring it up that it's not on the map. So
That's a good point.
it's kind of leaving it up to whoever's reviewing on whether or not they're, I guess there's no guidance on what this should be applied to and what it shouldn't be. And
Yeah,
I'm thinking of, I'm not from Red Lodge, right? So
Right.
if I'm reviewing a zoning application, for instance, I don't necessarily know what this applies to, so
Mhm.
I may not know that I need to be looking at this overlay district when I'm reviewing that zoning application, right? So I think that's why I'm saying, and same thing if you were to hire somebody from out of Red Lodge, it's going to take them time to learn Red Lodge and figure that out. I'm just saying it would be much easier if we had it on the map. So I would suggest we just add it to the map, and then I think that clears it up. And I think then we know what lots that it applies to.
Fire.
No, I think Jeremy's point's very well taken, but, just in looking at the map, like, to the east of Kainu, there are lots on the east side of Kainu, and then there's a whole area zoned R2, and that area that's zoned R2 is the escarpment.
Yeah.
So, I think, Jeremy, that as we go through the map, then that's one of those things we need to definitely lay out is if we're gonna keep this in where it applies.
Well, and on the east bench, if we ever ended up, bringing in Palmer
Yeah.
up on that bench,
Yeah.
it would be really important to have this zone.
Which is currently county, but yes, yeah,
It is,
yeah,
but if we have the rule in there,
yep.
and then if the Palmer property came into the city limits.
Well, and I think the other part of it is, Pine Ridge, which is in the golf course and runs along basically the top of the west bench for most of its length.
Yeah,
That area, that forces a setback quite a distance from the actual edge of the
Yeah.
bench, but then there is the area down, and I think that's where you can see the houses as you go south on Pine Ridge where it jogs. But just below that, on the escarpment on the hillside of the bench is P1P, but it's that area up above. But those are they're all built.
Yeah, it's all the cul-de-sacs that
Yeah,
are up there
yeah.
as you're coming off Lazy M.
Yep,
And that one, I feel like Lazy M has a section that kind of runs across it for a second, and then Pine Ridge is behind it, and then Pine Ridge has the road running across it.
Yeah.
And realistically, if you start reading this, like, the skyline overlay graphics that's in here, the maximum height of a building that penetrates the natural skyline pursuant to this subsection shall be 20 feet.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
a 40-foot minimum setback, which honestly isn't that much. So, it's understood that we probably will see some of that building at that point, or a TP.
well,
And,
if those lots are already
They're already built, and
If they're
again,
built or purchased,
and I
you can have a
imagine
no problem.
many of those homes were already, because I know of a lot of those houses that were already
Yeah.
there probably well before this zoning went in.
Mhm.
So this is mostly just, again, forward thinking, future thinking, in case anything happened up
Okay.
on Airport Road or East Bench.
We'll make a note to add, we'll make a note to add that to the zoning map, for review, as we get onto the zoning map later. We'll make a note of that. The rest of the Skylight zoning district, I guess I didn't really have any comments, on the rest of the district. That was the only thing I had commented on that overlay district. So, Connor, go ahead and go to the next page and we can just briefly go through the rest of this section and see if anybody, it sounds like we've been doing these now, so it doesn't seem like we probably need to make any changes to this overlay district, but since we're here, we should probably just make sure that nobody wants to make any changes to this.
I was just noticing that B up above is actually, it's not a graphic depiction, but that defined it textually
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
of what it was, which is how it's been getting enforced, I'm sure. The one thing that's there is it says shall define the rim based on a distinct change. That's the one part of that maybe there's some vagueness in, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it also leaves it up to the zoning administrator, which I don't particularly like, because again, that leaves it up for interpretation, right? I'm trying to take, my recommendation is always take the interpretation out as much as you possibly can and make things clear, because zoning administrators come and go. And so, so I think that just getting it defined on the map clears this up so that it's not, and we, basically we change this language here to say it, showing on the zoning map as Skyline Overlay Zoning District or something.
But
and that way,
the problem is, you still have to have 100 feet from what point X? So do you draw the actual rim in on there from the GIS information like Jeff was saying?
Yeah.
yeah, that's that. I mean, we'll use this description to draw that in. So we'll basically draw the rim in there and then offset that 100 feet, and that's essentially our district boundary.
I apologize if I was multitasking, kind of mixed it. You guys already ended up there. I just.
Okay, perfect. So if do we have any other questions on the Skyline Overlay Zoning District? We can go on to Commercial Historic.
That's what we were thinking of, is these diagrams.
Yeah.
I went through the Commercial Historic Overlay Zoning District. I mean, I think this has all been hashed and rehashed through the growth policy updates and stuff like that. Unless there's anything that you guys want to update in here, this is very specific, obviously, to Red Lodge and your overlay district. So I didn't see anything in here that needed to be updated from a process standpoint or anything like that. I think this is just more preference in that of what you want in that district. So I'll leave it to you guys to go through that and see if there's any changes you want to make.
Jeff, do you have a?
No, I don't have any
Concern on-
change. I don't have any changes.
Okay, good. Barry?
I just have, one comment, and there's a newer building. I like the building, don't get me wrong, but I don't see how the Babcock and Miles Wine Bar fits in with the historic character of the downtown. I think that's where we get into trouble with when we have subjectivity, and it's up to the interpretation of the planner. And obviously, I probably came before this group at some point when it was being done, but I think when we use things like historic character, we need to kind of define what that really is, and then we need to adhere to it. I say, don't get me wrong, I like the building, I think it's a great addition to downtown, but I think we run the risk of being inconsistent. And that applies to any new construction downtown. And I mean, I can point to other areas around town where we've kind of bent the rules and done things have been done that really weren't part of the, you know, as I read it, weren't the intent of.
I mean, there's very specific standards in this section that talk about exterior materials, and architectural features, bulkheads and kick plates, ground floor window requirements, upper floor window requirements, parapets, cornices, paint colors, and prohibited lights. So I mean, there's pretty specific standards in here.
So I guess
So
the question for
yes.
Terry would be specifically what of the Babcock and Miles architecture to you?
It looks modern.
So it looks like a new building.
Well, no, it doesn't look like a new building. It looks
It has a
modern. because
contemporary-
It looks like a contemporary modern building. And don't get me wrong, I know the architect and I know the owners and. so
Right,
I'm
but
not-
no, I'm specifically asking for a visual example besides it looks X. So again, that's
I think it
subjective.
has to do, I guess, to me, it's roof pitch.
Okay. So that might be, again, I'm trying to address where we can address the thing that needs change.
Or even, I mean, if you go down Broadway, you have all these false, I mean, literally, that originally, they were all false fronts.
Yeah,
And truthfully, a lot of the backs never went beyond that
yeah.
false
There's
front.
another apartment complex over there too, or that's a living structure of some sort, down kind of by.
It's the old Carbon
the
County News
foundation.
Building.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
That's,
oh, do you remember what it was like before?
yeah, with cinder block,
But-
yeah.
Yeah,
But,
it was
but
like
I'm
four
saying is that,
squares.
I think that looks good, and it.
No, I don't think,
It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb.
it doesn't have the roof line, it has a different, basically a flat roof line, but again, that's in character with most of the downtown.
That has string lights.
Oh,
Sorry.
And yeah, I was thinking it was probably about the same thing as Babcock and Mine.
No, that has an extreme, and I'm not even sure, off the top of my head, what's our height restriction downtown? And maybe that's something we need to consider, because there are buildings downtown that are more than 30 feet, so.
Right, and I guess, so again, I just want to identify what the contemporary aesthetic is that needs to be eliminated, or, because again, when you think of, and also how do we define that historic character,
Yeah.
right? So again, what genre are we going for? Because that roof line and that pitch is actually very historic for a different timeline or a different period of history.
Well, again, you're trying to say, we're trying to, I guess, if I go back and look at the master plan, we're trying to bring downtown back to
The early
a
1900s.
particular, yes. And
Exactly.
that building does not fit with that
And that's,
character. And I say, I don't have a problem with the building,
yeah.
it's just, are we being inconsistent when we deviate from what we created?
And so, again, this is where I'm just trying to emphasize, like, let's choose the language, and more so, let's choose the period and the actual design style and make that the requirement versus saying, we want historic character, instead of saying that, we want 1902 historic character. Like, we want this specific design style that you can find defined, defined. Sorry, that was a lot of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
So it's good to identify that, and because again, to me, it, as Jeremy's mentioning, it follows all of those rules. So within this, and it doesn't have the look. So is this something that we can put together when we decide the design packet? Because I know that's been a conversation of providing more specific rules, or Jeremy, should that exist within our zoning?
So I think the aesthetic is we're trying to achieve, and we've used this language in various things, and we have a quaint, historic downtown,
Right.
like the early 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, when we do our description, we need to come back to that, where we're trying to bring it back to the early 20th century.
Yep.
So, I don't know, just.
I think-
just
I think that's a
thought-
good
just
idea.
Food for thought.
I think it's
I
a good
think that
idea.
we need to double check our overlay at all, our zoning map itself. In other words, to me, the commercial historic overlay district should be Broadway, not necessarily Hauser.
That's a good
Yeah.
point too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's where it currently
facing Broadway
is.
as opposed to, yeah.
Exactly, along Broadway. I see Jeff wants to come in on this. Jeff?
Well, I was just going to try to address Perry's question a little bit, and I think that's why it's important that we retain our linkage back to that 1986 revitalization plan, because that had specific recommendations for the buildings along Broadway, irregardless, I mean, that were representative of different time periods. So, so there's some buildings along Broadway that are not late 19th century, early 20th century. They're actually more 1930s deco style, sort of thing.
Sure.
So in terms of, I think we don't want to overthink this so much. So there's been so much work already done in terms of trying to define what the character downtown is, and that 1986 revitalization plan probably does one of the best jobs of defining at least providing some guidance in terms of what the intent is.
Are there standards, Jeff, outlined in that for what the city wants within the district? Like roof style, like similar to the standards that are outlined in the zoning currently. The reason I ask is this something we could just say under standards, all, standards as required by the 1986 or 96 revitalization plan? And
I
just
don't think they're not articulated as standards. They're articulated as recommendations for people that purchase a building and then want to restore it or do something with it. Then there's nothing in there as far as a standard. I guess my point was there is some guidance in terms of, at least within that document, of what the intent of historic character was as of 1986. And I don't have any specifics. Also, if I recall, I think they had several pages of architectural drawings and renderings.
I'm just trying to figure out how to tie this back into a regulation, like the zoning.
Yeah.
And
Jeremy, it's Perry again. I like Sandy's idea of maybe bringing this area back to Broadway,
Facing Broadway.
Yeah.
facing Broadway, and
Maybe to the
basically your
alley.
appearance needs to be similar to adjacent buildings. Then, and that's, I'm only saying that because we do have vacant spaces. And we don't want to see, and again, I don't mind Babcock and Miles, I like that building, but we don't want, is that a building that we want to see on Broadway?
Right, not on.
But there's
No,
a,
okay,
Right.
Look at the empty places that are on Broadway and what,
I'm thinking in terms of what it
Yeah.
was before it
Yeah.
was built, and it was a house.
modular.
that was
it was the dentist
Dentist
office,
office.
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we could certainly amend the zoning map to take some of those lots out that are outside of the Broadway corridor, if that's what you want. I still don't think that fixes our standards question. But I mean, it definitely, fixes the, what does this apply to? Let me do this. Let me review the standards. Connor, just highlight the standards section of this. Let me review the standards against the recommendations of the 86 plan. And let me see if I could come up with some recommendations for revisions.
Okay, that sounds good.
And maybe,
No, I think highball,
Yeah.
we're gonna have this similar issue,
Yeah.
you know.
and maybe there should be a reference to the, 1986 plan within this
Well, like
area.
Jeff said, though, they're just recommendations in there. There's no standards per se. And so
Yeah.
we have to translate that into an actual standard or regulation that we can enforce. So, I mean, we could certainly reference the 86 plan in the, in the purpose and intent section, that type of thing, or even under the standards section is, these standards are, derived from the recommendations of the 86 revitalization plan or something to that effect. And then,
Yes,
try to get these standards to mimic or at least work towards implementing the recommendations of the plan, right? Because that's the goal, is you want the regulations to help you implement the plan. So,
Yeah,
so I'll go through that 86 plan against the standards and see if I can come up with some recommendations that we can make to this section that would help us do that.
I have one more comment. There's been 3 new buildings built on Broadway that really mimic, I think, or capture the intent of what's desired, and that's the Rocky Fork, or the new dental building. I think that's Rocky Fork. I can't remember. And then there's
Rock Creek,
Black Canyon Bistro now. It used to be the Bridge Creek building.
yep.
That even though that's set back a little bit, it still captures kind of the design and intent of the downtown. And then what used to be the Twice Touched antique store or store that's now,
Oh, yeah.
that was
That's
built.
that,
So
Oh, yeah.
so there, I guess my whole point is, even though it sounds like it's ambiguous, we've been pretty successful with the existing language to encourage developers to try to build or match what that downtown historic look is, or what we're striving for, I should say. At least through this, I mean, our past planners have been successful in working with developers that have built those buildings to try to match what we'd like to see as far as historic downtown building design.
well, no, and I think those are all excellent fit with downtown, and, the challenge there from a developer or builder perspective is they went to a great additional cost to bring those facades to that
Yeah.
appearance level, and not everyone's gonna be willing to do that, especially with costs as high as they are today, so.
Prerogative was another one that they redid the front, and it's kind of different, actually.
but there are a couple other buildings in this overlay that will probably be demolished and
Mhm.
rebuilt, so we do need to be really
That's what I think, what we wanna
specific
see.
now before they go down.
Yeah, and this is, a little off, but it might give us an idea of some alternatives to what you're talking about. Does anybody know what the new county building is supposed to look like?
Yeah, I mean, ish.
Mr. Mayor, would
New
you like to
county.
address that?
They had some very rough drafts that they built out.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's been a year or so since they first presented those, and it looked to me like high schools, where I grew up, sort of a thing. It wasn't, but a reminder too, that we just get to make suggestions to
Right.
them.
Those are government buildings.
Which is kind of back to, one thing, just a question you raised that I looked up in the background, it's 45 feet in Seaboard.
Is it 45?
Yeah, so just as a comment that you had raised there, but,
Thank you.
that the county would be the appropriate people to look at, because when they drew it, it was not the full on, it was just the PAR level drawings.
And it looked like a municipal building.
I mean, it
did.
didn't really
Or-
look like.
Or a school, I mean, that was
Yeah.
kind of I guess that would be kind of the same thing.
So even though they're in the city limits, they don't have to, because,
Look at the post office.
Because the state code says that, I'll let Jeremy will say it better. Basically, the state code says that municipalities don't get to bind other municipalities, even if they're within your boundaries.
Yeah, state code is pretty specific that other government agencies do not have to follow development regulations within.
Listen to an agent.
So counties, federal government, those sorts of agencies don't have to. It's encouraged that they try to, but there's nothing that says they have to. So.
okay. I think we've beat that up enough.
Yes.
You think?
Okay,
Of course.
well, I will go through the standards against the 86 plan, and we'll look at some recommendations to see if there's anything we could recommend that might help further implement the plan going forward.
Okay.
So the next one is the Hybug Historic Overlay Zoning District, and there's only one section here, and that's just restricted uses.
How dare you? Medical office in the high bug. Sorry, it's just such a silly restriction to me, but.
So I had a couple of comments on this. First of all, the underlying zoning in that district is R2 and R3. First off, medical uses are not allowed in R2, R3. So I don't even think that this should apply. And then my question is really related to professional offices. And I guess what is the professional offices are allowed as a conditional use permit in R2, R3. So I guess what is the reasoning behind this one restriction in Hybug?
Beats me.
Someone got mad at someone at
Yeah.
some point. Like, someone got really upset that
Jeff
their
knows.
neighbor did something.
Jeff remembers. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, this has a long history, I think, and it basically, I think, came from the residences of that neighborhood, that they had concerns about changing the character of the neighborhood. And that's kind of what precipitated the development of this overlay district. It goes all the way back to probably the 1994 master plan, and then the subsequent zoning that was put in place following that in the late 1990s.
They specifically did not want medical offices and professional offices, and that's it. That's all it was about.
Yeah. Doctors are terrible. We hate them. Sorry. It's just, it's such a silly line. But
They wanted to turn it into an HOA.
It was
Traffic
traffic.
and parking.
I think, again, I just had a question specifically to the Sunrise House. Did that particular property have anything to do with the zoning to where they were afraid that that particular building could have become medical offices or a professional building? Because that particular structure would be suitable for that.
There used to be trees growing out of the front porch.
So again, I wonder if that's, thinking back, if this was done for a very explicit,
Yeah.
specific reason, does it need to exist?
Jeremy, I have a different angle. This room, Jeff, you probably know, is that a designated and historic neighborhood, or are there just historic homes in that neighborhood?
Just historic homes.
Yeah.
There's a
Historic neighborhood, that has definite restrictions.
There's a number of historic houses in that neighborhood that date back to the late 1880s.
The majority of them.
I mean, it was, historically, it was where the most affluent residences of early Red Lodge built their homes and where they lived.
Right.
It was the bankers and the mine operators and
Owners.
I mean, I guess my question is if this issue is that old, I'm just throwing it out there that is it still an issue? Do we still need to have the overlay district? First of all, medical offices aren't even allowed in R2 and R3. So I think we could take that out of this, and basically we're left with professional offices, and professional offices are only allowed as a conditional use permit. So
Under the table.
Yeah. Susan, go ahead.
So yeah, I guess I'm just throwing it out there as far as I'm concerned. It's up to you guys.
Go ahead, Susan.
I think there could have been some concern about sirens. If you had, fire trucks and ambulances and that kind of thing, if you had a number of, plus the parking in that area has always been a concern. So either one of those could have birthed the concept of, we don't want any of those here. And that part, unless you start tearing down the houses and increasing the space between them, isn't gonna change.
Mhm.
No.
Well, I think, I know people that live up in that area, and one sitting over there.
Yeah.
I think there's long been a belief or feeling of the residents in that area that it should be preserved as a historic district. And this doesn't address that, so
Right.
as it reads right now, and that's, we kind of talked about this when we were talking about R2 earlier, that there's nothing keeping somebody from doing a scrape and a rebuild of a modern chrome and glass contemporary home, and how well would that go,
Yeah.
so.
And on a whole, the one thing that's nice is the majority of the homes within that neighborhood are registered historic homes. And so I think that does that preservation. I don't think this does anything to support what they need or what they want within that district. If we wanted to create restrictions in terms of what kind of materials are used and those types of pieces, I don't even feel comfortable doing that, because I feel the historic homes that are there already have those restrictions there when they opted in to having that registered historic home. And for the folks that haven't opted in, it's likely because they don't want to. And I mean, I could probably register my house, and you bet your ass I'm not going to.
My understanding is that the registering it actually doesn't put any building regulations.
Exactly.
I know when Regis did theirs, it does not actually impose any restrictions.
There's a different level that would put those restrictions on,
Yeah.
but that's a higher level.
Gotcha.
You would have to take it.
Jeremy, do you have a suggestion on what we should do in this district that would preserve the historic district? In other words,
Keep people from building the big modern house.
yeah,
I have to look at R2.
because, R2 and R3, they could build anything in there.
And a lot of that exists in there. I mean, again, it's just sneaky. Like, I think about that one house up on the hill that's like a 4-tiered home coming down.
Yeah.
There's one very contemporary house up at the top of Word. That's just like it's on the 500 block of Word.
I guess I would have to
think. 6 blocks south of my house.
I guess I'd have to think about it. I guess I don't have a good answer for you right off the top of my head. I mean, the simplest answer might be is to add some language in here, like a standard section that would say, any development must be compatible with adjacent structures or something. Some language like that
Really?
and then add a design review requirement that says this, any structures constructed within this overlay district must go through design review. And that way it gives the planning board, the ability to review, a residential structure that's proposed in that district for design. Um,
And
Well, I think if you,
the neighbors.
yeah, and I like what you're saying, Jeremy, and I mean, there's people shaking their heads yes and no.
Hard no, but.
I mean,
Well, don't look
I
that
think
way.
that to this group, we have to ask ourselves, and, you know, if you've traveled, you know, go to Denver, and some of the old neighborhoods.
Go look at
And,
Harlow.
and when property values get to a certain point, somebody comes in and says, I want to just buy that for the lot, I'm gonna go in with a bulldozer, take down the historic structure there, scrape and build. And you go to Breckenridge, go to Aspen, go to Jackson Hole,
in Red Lodge.
Park City.
go to,
Yeah.
I mean, look at
We
two
have it over here
24
on
off
plan.
Broadway. What
Yeah.
happens
Well,
when that gets, what do we put there?
Yeah.
Hagen's the challenge,
I mean,
you have the creek
it's
on one
coming.
side.
Yeah, of course it is.
And when you're paying the
What
price,
empty lot that's
you're
across the
paying for
street,
a lot on the
it-
creek,
it took that house down.
you don't want to build a
That's nobody.
stick-built
That's still just vacant.
1,500 square foot,
There's-
2,000
there's
square
lots
foot
of
home, so,
excuses
yeah.
there, though.
Mm-hmm.
So,
so I guess I would
my-
open it up to the planning board then. If there's people shaking their heads yes and some shaking their heads no, maybe
Gotta
we
hash
need
this out.
a little bit of a poll on whether or not the planning board as a whole even wants to make any changes to this section.
Jeff, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think it's worth having something in there to address the historic character and retaining retaining the character of that neighborhood and the types of homes that are there, especially the historic ones. I also think the residents are going to have a say in this one if we were to take it out as well. I think in the past, in past zoning
They're both-
reviews, they have commented on some changes that they didn't agree with. Not in recent years, but in earlier years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of agree with the wording that Jeremy started out with.
Yeah, and I mean, I can expand upon it, but just generally speaking, that's kind of the direction I'm
Do you
thinking
like-
is.
I just have a recommendation.
Okay. Chelsea has a recommendation.
Is there, or I guess a question for recommendation, is there a way that we can actually get with the Historic Preservation Office to create some of either the standards or a recommendation for historic neighborhoods?
Yeah.
So
Maybe
I,
create a district.
yeah,
Yeah,
We have the.
well, that's what the district.
Right,
I mean,
so
but
Yeah.
do we create a historical district
Yeah.
itself?
right, and then my thought with
I know
that
that's
is,
a whole
as
other bag of worms, but how
My-
else do you do it?
again, I know that there's a substantial amount of people who have opted in, because if you try and say you want it to adhere to the houses next to you, again, that challenge is not one that I think that is fair for any planner or building inspector to
Right.
try and take down. Now, that being said, if you actually had historic, again, the homes that are there that are on the register, if you had some regulation for them, again, people who have opted in, some of these beautiful Victorians, but there's also a few of those in between that are not, they're the old garage spaces of those beautiful Victorians. And I don't necessarily think that they need to adhere to that same protocol.
But if they tore them down,
Right.
and this is what we're talking about.
Right.
If they tore them down, how do you feel, Susan, about something in there saying it needs to conform to the neighborhood? Yay or nay?
Nay.
Shouldn't have to.
It would be polite, could be nice, but I don't think we should.
Have to.
Right.
Perry, have to conform to the neighborhood or not?
I say yay, and I'll just briefly explain why. If I own one of those historic homes that I put a lot of money into the restoration, and the house next door to me sold, and they came in and scraped it and built something, first thing people think is that impacts my property value with what, it might be an improvement over what was there, don't get me wrong, but that's not how they're gonna see something that's out of character with the rest of the block.
If the whole group were in HOA,
Yeah,
it
Right.
would be different.
Well, that's basically
Yeah.
what
That's what
we're,
you're
what we're
talking
talking
about,
about.
yeah.
And we're not an HOA, we're a city.
But any of the overlay districts are technically HOAs, because there are restrictions within that district. So,
yeah, we're trying to preserve the character of the community, and it's not just the downtown, it's the community at large. And we have areas, you know, the golf course doesn't or shouldn't look like
The downtown.
the downtown or the high bug. Those are different people. It's a different customer completely. And, you know, there's people that would, you know, some of you are realtors, but there's people that would never move downtown because the houses are smaller than they're used to. The lot sizes are smaller than they're used to. But there are other people that would go, oh, well, I'll just buy this house and this house and then build my dream house here because I have the money and it's a nice neighborhood. I could do it and it's close to downtown. But then,
And they're bigger lots,
and they're big, and now you're big, yeah, so,
because they are. I mean,
yeah.
they're-
So I don't know,
John.
I'm just a
yay or nay on
historic
conforming?
preservationist, so.
So I guess because
No,
of-
because you're gonna.
because we're running out of time, why don't we
Love
do
to see.
this? Why don't I look at this overlay district, okay? And let me look at some other cities that have some historic districts. I know Helena has one. I know there's
Say
others
Helena.
around the state. Let me look and see what they're doing as far as language for this type of thing. And we can come back to this with some ideas. How's that sound?
Question on that though, Jeremy. It's so, because people do opt in, right? So would it behoove us to look at which ones are and then how many really aren't in that district that aren't, right? To do a survey,
Yeah. Well, because that's the other piece too, is like,
because then you could protect them
yeah.
some more, you know, if they're.
Because again, I can think of like
Yeah.
2 blocks where it really makes sense. Like there's but
Right.
the overlay that currently is there
So maybe we
doesn't
can shrink
necessarily. And that could be it.
Yeah,
But again, to me, I think and also if you're gonna be saying this is an HOA, then that means you gotta get the people involved and they gotta go to a vote, because
Yeah.
that's an HOA.
yeah.
So, again, if we realistically, if they wanna come in and have that opinion, I have a feeling you're gonna get a mixed review. You're gonna have 5 that are really loud about it, and you're gonna have 10 that are really pissed about it.
Or don't even show up.
Or don't even show up and then get really mad when they find out that it happened later. Like,
Yeah.
so it's just, again, I don't think that it's necessarily the position of the planning board to do that.
Okay. So we'll stop there and you can give us some ideas of what other people are doing with the high bug historic overlay. Jeremy?
It's a great idea.
Yeah, let me look and see what I can find for some language that is in some other jurisdictions, and see if I can come up with some language that is strong but not too strong. How's that? we'll
That's
just
great.
A suggestion.
Yeah.
we'll see how it plays out. How's that?
That's perfect. Okay, so it is 7:21. So I guess, at this point, I'm going to open it up again for public comment. We haven't got anybody in the room. Is there anybody online that would like to make a public comment on any of the things we've discussed tonight, or anything that you want to?
Madam Chair, I am seeing no hands or mics coming off of mute.
Thank you very much. Staff communications. Connor?
I don't think we really have anything. We have no applications. Well, we have the Spires. I think I mentioned this maybe last meeting or last couple meetings. Spires has submitted a subdivision application for 12 lots. So we are working through that. They have completeness. We're working through the sufficiency comments, or sufficiency review. I sent last week a sufficiency letter that was about 8 pages long of additional comments and information that we need before we can proceed with public review of that application. And so that's back to the applicant, and they are working through those comments. I don't know when we'll see that. Again, I think we're probably likely looking at maybe a June timeframe for public hearing with the planning board for that subdivision. Is probably, it's going to kind of depend on how quickly they get their responses back to me and what those responses look like, right? So Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. That's the only thing hanging out there right now as far as applications that we've received.
Does that include hooking it up to Diamond C?
Correct.
I think I'm gonna miss that one, sorry.
Coward.
Well,
It
the thing is
Yeah.
the subdivision regulations require that to happen. So we can't do something that's contrary to our own regulations. So,
We just know that there will be pushback. There was the last time as well. But, I didn't know if it was,
It might be helpful to have staff available just to clarify what, and it doesn't mean the comments won't go down, but if there's a clarification up front about what the regulations do require,
and why we're doing it.
maybe that will cut down on it a little bit.
Right
well,
from
and
the
that'll
start.
all be part of my staff report. I plan on being in Red Lodge for that meeting because I know there's probably going to be public there too. And I think it'll be a good idea for you, just like with the zoning review the last time. And I was there, the same thing here. I will be in Red Lodge at that meeting to help facilitate that meeting.
Thank you. A lot.
He's coming down for the URD meeting too, by the way.
Yes,
Fun.
Oh,
I'm excited for that
I
one.
forgot about that.
with Kansas State?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to actually provide the introduction to the meeting and just give a brief 5-minute overview of what URDs are and what they can and can't do essentially. And then at that point, I'm going to kick it over to Kansas State to do their presentation. So, and then I'm going to be there to help out with the public comment and looking at the Rocky Fork project stuff.
Cool.
Excellent. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other communication or update? Hearing none. Meeting is adjourned.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone.